Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Councillor Darryl. I'm a councillor in Causeway and Glens Borough Council. Can I start off by echoing the Mayor and Gillian Williams' comments by welcoming you all here tonight to our Holocaust Memorial event. I'd like to take this opportunity to share with you my experience of my visit to Auschwitz. On a dull and grey Friday morning in October past, myself and my colleagues who took part in the programme, we made our way via bus from Krakow city centre to the industrial town of Oswiecim, where Auschwitz is located. A short time after arriving at our destination, we were passing through security. Almost immediately after that, I was confronted with the infamous metal banner at the concentration camp entrance, which reads, "Arbeit macht frei," translating to "work sets you free." As I stood in the shadow of these gates, hesitating before I walked through, it just began to sink in that I was about to cross the threshold into the site of the largest mass murder in human history. Little did the millions of souls that passed through those gates in the early 1940s know that their freedom, along with their dignity and their life, would be stripped away from them in such an egregious manner. Auschwitz is unquestionably the most pervasive symbol of human suffering known to man. And I knew at that point that I was about to get an unfiltered insight into the depths of human cruelty and suffering which took place there. Many of the original buildings in Auschwitz have been converted and restored into museum space, where visitors like us could get a better chance to understand what went on within that camp during World War II. As myself and my friends and colleagues walked from building to building, reading information and looking at the exhibits, it was actually difficult to build a picture in my mind as to what it must have been like for those who were there and were unfortunate enough to end up in Auschwitz. Some of the material possessions which were stripped away from the people entering the camp in a bid to erase their very identity were on display. There were valuables, luggage, glasses, photographs and shoes, to name but a few of the items which were confiscated and stockpiled by the Nazis for their own gain. Up until this point, I remember feeling a sense of numbness as I tried to comprehend how and why these atrocities took place such a short time ago in what was supposed to be the civilised world. I then entered a hall containing a large glass cabinet, almost the length of this room that we're in today. Within the cabinet was some of the hair which had been shaved off the men, women and children that were imprisoned within the camps. As I walked past this exhibit, something caught my eye in the middle of this vast quantity of hair. It was a small, blonde, plaited ponytail. This instantly reminded me of my youngest daughter. And that feeling I had of numbness was eclipsed by an overwhelming sense of grief. And for me at that moment, it brought home the reality of what had actually taken place in Auschwitz. Many of the exhibits which we've seen demonstrated the highly powerful brainwashing propaganda which was used not only to turn the German people against the Jewish nation, but also to find it acceptable that they be put to death. And my mind at that point, and as William McCandless has also pointed out, was drawing comparisons between Nazi propaganda of the 1940s and how easily our present day media could possibly influence people, and maybe does so. The tour of Auschwitz I culminated in a visit to the gas chambers and the incineration room, where over 1 million people perished as the Nazis carried out these acts of humiliation, degradation, starvation and murder with an absolutely chilling efficiency. This place that we visited could only be described as a factory of death. We then travelled a very short distance to Auschwitz II, or Birkenau. Construction of the Birkenau camp was started in October 1941 as part of a plan to ease congestion at the first camp. Auschwitz I was adapted from an existing Nazi artillery barracks. However, Auschwitz II, Birkenau, was specifically designed with the sole purpose of mass extermination. The vastness of Birkenau was notable as we approached the camp via a path which ran alongside the infamous train tracks which brought so many people to meet their fate. It was clear when we got there to see how this camp would have actually functioned. Trains passed through a checkpoint, they went past the main building and pulled up alongside the platform, where the human cargo, the masses of people, would be unloaded. Inmates would be sorted according to their worth before being herded like cattle through a series of gates. Countless low-set buildings, as far as the eye could see, provided a very, very meagre shelter for the prisoners. The gas chambers in Birkenau had been destroyed by the Nazis in an attempt to hide the atrocities which took place there. But for me, the resounding message of Auschwitz and Birkenau museums was not one of apportioning blame, but rather to recognise man's capacity for cruelty and evil, and how quickly the world can spiral out of control. We have a duty to help each other better understand the past, making sure nothing like this is ever allowed to happen again. On reflection, I would say that my visit to Auschwitz was far from a comfortable experience. Nevertheless, it was the most important journey that I have ever been on. It certainly altered my outlook on how people, especially those in positions of responsibility and civic leadership, should behave. It often takes courage to speak out against oppression, hatred, and bigotry. My memories of Auschwitz certainly helped me to summon that courage to speak out. During the programme, which a number of us took part in, I was reminded of a poem by the anti-Nazi theologian, a pastor by the name of Martin Niemöller, and I would like to end today by reading that poem. First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out, because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews. I did not speak out, because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Thank you.